heard a couple of minutes ago from SpaceX's launch conductor that pre-fueling poll resulted in a go for the start of propellant loading and a go for launch. So SpaceX is proceeding into the countdown at this time. Liftoff remains targeted for 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 23:11 UTC, with Italy's Cosmos SkyMed second-generation radar satellite on board. We should hear confirmation that the propellant loading process is beginning about 1 minute from now. Now less than 35 minutes until launch time. The propellant loading process is now underway. So 46,000 gallons or so of kerosene will be loaded into both stages of the Falcon 9 rocket out at pad 40. This kerosene is technically called RP1 or rocket propellant 1. It's a highly refined grade of kerosene that will feed the Merlin engines on the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 launch vehicle as it climbs into space this evening. Meanwhile, liquid oxygen is now flowing into the first stage. This oxidizer is chilled to several hundred degrees below zero and will serve as an oxidizer to be consumed in combination with the kerosene fuel inside the combustion chamber of the Merlin engines. Now T-minus 30 minutes, less than a half hour away from liftoff of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. The propellant loading process is proceeding at this time with kerosene and liquid oxygen flowing into the first stage of the Falcon 9 out at Launch Pad 40. Kerosene fuel also flowing into stage 2 at this time. Liquid oxygen will start flowing into stage 2 at T-minus 16 minutes. Again, these propellants will be consumed by the Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 rocket during its climb into orbit this evening. You're looking at a live view of Launch Pad 40. It's a golden hour here at the Space Coast of Florida, as you can see in this live view. Frost beginning to become apparent on the outer skin of the Falcon 9 first stage. That frost is caused by the loading of liquid oxygen, which is chilled to cryogenic temperatures several hundred degrees below zero. As that oxidizer flows into that tank and fills it up, the cold temperatures inside begin to cause a buildup of frost and ice on the outer skin of the airframe of the Falcon 9 booster. Also some first hints of venting and vapors now visible out at the launch pad. That is gaseous oxygen as the liquid oxygen boils off in these comparatively warm ambient temperatures here in Florida. Now, 28 minutes from launch, some statistics on tonight's mission carrying the Italian Cosmos Skymed radar satellite into orbit. This will be the 138th launch of a Falcon 9 rocket since the Falcon 9's debut back in June of 2010. It's also the 146th flight of a Falcon rocket overall since the very first SpaceX orbital launch attempt of a Falcon 1 back in 2006. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, this booster stage that comprises the lower 2/3 of the Falcon 9, as you see it out on Pad 40, is making its third trip to space after 2 previous flights as side boosters on a Falcon Heavy rocket. It's also the 79th Falcon 9 launch from this specific launch pad. Pad 40's has a history that stretches back to the 1960s. Before its conversion for SpaceX missions, it was the home of the Air Force's Titan rocket program, carrying numerous spy satellites and reconnaissance satellites into orbit for the Air Force and the National Reconnaissance Office. It's also the departure point for several science missions for NASA, as well as, I believe, one of the Voyager probes exploring the outer solar system. This payload, CSG-2, or Cosmos Skymed second generation number 2, is the 80th spacecraft built by Thales Alenia Space of Europe to fly on a SpaceX rocket. It's also the first SpaceX mission dedicated to the Italian Space Agency. And again, SpaceX is busy out of the gates to begin 2022. It's the 4th Falcon 9 launch of the year since SpaceX's first flight of 2022 just back on January 6th. So in 24 days, 4 missions in the books, assuming tonight's launch occurs as scheduled. It's the 5th orbital launch out of Florida Space Coast this year, with those previous 3 missions from SpaceX, as well as 1 flight by United Launch Alliance. As the countdown approaches T-minus 25 minutes, it's a beautiful evening here at Cape Canaveral. The placid waters of the Turn Basin here at the Kennedy Space Center press site in front of me. Winds are calm, clear skies overhead. If you're in the local area, it could be one of the more spectacular launches in recent memory, with the liftoff scheduled 12 minutes after sunset. And as soon as the rocket flies out of the atmosphere, don't go inside. The Falcon 9 booster will be coming back for landing at landing zone 1 about 8 minutes after liftoff. and it's expected to be accompanied by a twin sonic booms as the rocket makes its final descent back toward Earth. Now less than 20 minutes to go. The Falcon 9 rocket is continuing to be loaded with propellant at this time. You're seeing the big vent from the strongback there. That's gaseous oxygen venting from the strongback tower to the right of the launch pad. This marks the beginning of a chill down of the strongback plumbing that will lead the liquid oxygen flow into the second stage once that gets underway at T-minus 16 minutes. So that the liquid oxygen will begin flowing into stage 2 in around 3 minutes from now. This chill down procedure conditions those liquid oxygen transfer lines to begin that loading. Again, as you can see, the venting is flowing pretty much straight down the rocket. Very light winds, nearly calm winds here at Cape Canaveral right now. Ideal conditions for a launch and landing. Now passing the T-minus 16 minute point, the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket is now being loaded with liquid oxygen. This is the fourth and final propellant tank to be loaded during the countdown this evening, with liquid oxygen and kerosene already being loaded into stage 1. In this live view of pad 40, you can see the Falcon 9 rocket standing 229 feet tall. The first stage booster, booster number 1052 in SpaceX's fleet, again, is a veteran of 2 previous missions as side boosters on SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket. On both of those missions, the side boosters, including booster 1052 you see out on pad 40, returned to landing zone 1 and 2 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This image taken back in April 2019, showing the 2 side boosters from a Falcon Heavy rocket, including the rocket set to launch tonight, returning to landing zone 1 for their propulsive touchdowns for refurbishment and reuse. Now passing T-minus 15 minutes. This photograph from our photographer, Michael Kane, captured the view of this first stage booster being transferred through Kennedy Space Center back in December from SpaceX's processing facility out to pad 40 to get ready for tonight's launch. This view showing the scorch and soot marks on the first stage from its previous 2 missions. On the left, the Merlin engines covered under a tarp. The 4 landing legs also visible in this view. Those landing legs will unfurl just prior to landing this evening. Again, the booster will return to landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral around 8 minutes after liftoff. Should be a spectacular view as the rocket returns to Earth. This mission also is the second mission of the year to head toward the south from Cape Canaveral. The Italian Cosmos Sky radar satellite is heading into a polar sun-synchronous orbit at an altitude of around 384 miles or 619 kilometers. And in order to reach that orbit from Cape Canaveral, the Falcon 9 first has to fly southeast to clear the Cape, head out over the Atlantic Ocean. And soon after the first stage shuts down and separates around 2.5 minutes after launch, that first stage will begin its return to the launch site at Cape Canaveral as the second stage continues to fire into orbit with the Cosmos SkyMed radar satellite. It will make a slight right turn or yaw maneuver to change its course slightly to kind of hug the east coast of Florida, heading south. It'll fly over South Florida, just off the coast of Miami, then out over the Straits of Florida, Cuba, and the Caribbean Sea as the rocket delivers the Cosmos SkyMed radar satellite into orbit for the Italian Space Agency. T-minus 13 minutes and counting. Everything looking good for a launch this evening at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 23:11 UTC. The propellant loading of the Falcon 9 rocket is well advanced right now, with the RP1 or kerosene load into stage 2 completed. The other 3 propellant tanks continuing to receive their fuel and oxidizer supplies for tonight's liftoff. Now, T-minus 10 minutes and 40 seconds. We're hearing word from SpaceX that the range, the eastern range here at Cape Canaveral, is currently red due to a boat or ship very near the offshore keep out zone. The Coast Guard is working that issue to try to make sure that vessel is clear of the keep out area in the Atlantic Ocean in time for tonight's launch. Liftoff scheduled for 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time or 23:11 UTC. So around 10 minutes or so for the Space Force and the Coast Guard to work this issue with the ship in the downrange waters off of Cape Canaveral. Meanwhile, as SpaceX, or as the Coast Guard and the Space Force Eastern Range work this issue with the ship in the downrange safety zone in the Atlantic Ocean, the SpaceX countdown is continuing in hopes that the range violation clears in time for launch at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time or 23:11 UTC. Roughly 8 minutes to go in the countdown at this time. Now, inside of 7 minutes until launch, at this time, the chill down procedure is getting underway. That began at T-minus 7 minutes. This engine chill down involves flowing small amounts of supercool propellant into the engine plumbing at the bottom of the Falcon 9 rocket. This flow of supercool propellant conditions those components for the rapid flow of propellant they will see when the engines ignite a couple of seconds before launch. Also at this time in the countdown, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, again running on an automatic sequencer, is beginning to configure its navigation system for flight, also checking to verify that the rocket's onboard autonomous flight safety system, which would be used to destroy the rocket in the event it flies off course tonight, that flight safety system is being verified ready for launch. Less than 6 minutes to go. Now inside of 5 minutes to go. At this time, the propellant tanks on the Falcon 9 rocket are being pressurized to an intermediate level. This allows the strong back on the right side of the Falcon 9 rocket in this view to begin retracting about 1.5 degrees from its current position flush up against the rocket. That strong back retract is now underway. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Now less than 3 minutes to go in the countdown. We haven't heard an update on the condition of the Eastern Range at this time. It was red a few minutes ago due to a ship in the Atlantic Ocean near the keep out zone. Meanwhile, the SpaceX countdown is continuing. Liquid oxygen loading into the first stage is confirmed complete. The rocket is now fully loaded with 46,000 gallons of RP1 kerosene fuel, and the liquid oxygen load into stage 2 will be secured momentarily at around the T-minus 2 minute mark. SpaceX reports the Eastern Range is continuing to track that cruise liner in the offshore recovery zone. The countdown now T-minus 1 minute. 1 minute to clear that issue. Hold. We just heard from SpaceX the countdown is holding. This means the launch will not happen this evening with the instantaneous launch window at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time. The countdown has halted, presumably due to this range violation with the cruise liner in the Atlantic Ocean. Once again, the Falcon 9 should have lifted off around 90 seconds ago. However, the countdown was halted at T-minus 33 seconds due to a red condition, a range violation. A cruise liner, either departing or arriving at Port Canaveral, ventured too close to the downrange safety zone hazard area in the Atlantic Ocean. The Space Force runs the Eastern Range here at Florida Space Coast and monitors to ensure that all aircraft and all ships and boats are clear of the flight path that the Falcon 9 rocket will follow after liftoff. But tonight that wasn't the case. A cruise liner again, ventured too close to the flight path, too close to the hazard area that is carved out by the Space Force and range safety officials for public safety purposes. This mission, again, is set to carry the Italian CSG-2 radar satellite into orbit. It'll be heading downrange toward the south, toward polar orbit. This is an unusual trajectory historically for launches from here at Cape Canaveral. However, they are becoming more commonplace with more and more polar orbit missions launching from here. Most missions over the last few decades have launched toward the east or northeast, where the hazard areas are regularly announced and delineated for mariners and pilots. However, tonight's mission heading south, an unusual hazard area tonight, and one of the cruise liners that operates out of Port Canaveral got too close to the flight hazard area tonight, and the Eastern Range called a red condition, and the boat did not clear in time, and the countdown stopped with less than a minute to go. Again, with an instantaneous launch window tonight, that means the launch will not be happening until tomorrow at the earliest. The launch time is unchanged day to day. So tomorrow's launch opportunity will be at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time or 23:11 UTC. SpaceX has two Falcon 9 rockets vertical on two different launch pads here on the Eastern Range. On the right is a Falcon 9 rocket out at pad 39A here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. On the left is the view of the Falcon 9 on pad 40 that was supposed to launch tonight. Both of these views are live views of each launch pad. Assuming the Cosmos Skyman mission had launched tonight, SpaceX was targeting a liftoff tomorrow afternoon of the Falcon 9 rocket out on pad 39A. However, we expect that mission to be delayed as a ripple effect from tonight's delay. The mission with the Cosmos SkyMed satellite from pad 40 is for a customer of SpaceX, and those missions typically receive priority in SpaceX's launch schedule. The mission from pad 39A we expect to be delayed likely to no earlier than Tuesday, although we'll wait for a confirmation of that, is carrying 49 Starlink satellites into orbit for SpaceX's own internally developed, privately developed global internet constellation. Hello again, Stephen Clark here from Spaceflight Now at Kennedy Space Center. Just to recap what we saw earlier this evening, SpaceX was counting down to a planned launch of a Falcon 9 rocket at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time or 23:11 UTC. However, a cruise liner operating out of Port Canaveral, a few miles south of the launch pad, ventured too close to the Falcon 9 rocket's flight path. The Eastern Range, which is run by the U.S. Space Force, monitors the aircraft and ships in the area around the flight path of every rocket departing the Space Coast. And the Eastern Range declared a red condition, and the cruise liner that was venturing too close to the hazard area did not clear the area in time for tonight's instantaneous launch opportunity. And the countdown was held at about T-minus 33 seconds when the range informed SpaceX that the ship was not going to clear in time. This sets up for another launch opportunity tomorrow night for the Falcon 9 rocket with the Italian Cosmos SkyMed radar remote sensing satellite. The launch time day to day does not change, so liftoff will be targeted for 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 23:11 UTC tomorrow. We expect the following SpaceX mission on the company's launch schedule from Pad 39A, a few miles to the north, to be delayed a day, at least 1 day, to Tuesday, to accommodate the 1 day slip in the Cosmos SkyMed launch from Pad 40. So this was the third scrub for this mission, following back-to-back weather delays on Thursday and Friday evening. Some high winds on Saturday interfered with the pre-launch operations, so SpaceX could not make an attempt last night. And then tonight's launch was thwarted by a cruise liner in the hazard area in the Atlantic Ocean. Weather conditions tomorrow also look favorable, with a 90% chance of favorable conditions for launch tomorrow evening. So we hope you will join us for tomorrow's launch attempt. Our live coverage will again begin at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2200 UTC. Stay with us on our homepage at spaceflightnow.com, as well as our launch schedule, as well as Spaceflight Now's social media accounts for updates on this launch and other space missions scheduled for launch in the coming days. So until tomorrow, I'm Stephen Clark from Kennedy Space Center. Thank you for joining us, and have a good evening.